Hello, hello, hello. This is Dr. Troy.
And I'm Ben-Jamin Toy.
We're broadcasting from the Cohesion Culture headquarters in beautiful Charleston, South Carolina, where even when it rains, the sun still shines.
You're going to hear real-time stories from leaders confessing their most crucial or recent experiences in business.
Learn what their cost them, steps they took to fix it, and how they planned
to not do that one again.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome, Dan. Dan Rivers is with us. He is a realtor, investor, and entrepreneur, a father and husband, and a good friend of Ben-Jamin and mine. So, Dan, it's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm super excited to chat today about mistakes. Make a lot of them.
It's a great perspective.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? So, Dan, one of the things we like to do is to kind of do a little connections before content. So, I think possibly today I want to ask you a little bit something about, like, tell us about you being a father. Tell us about, like, what makes that really special for you.
Yeah, so a couple big things. Number one, at least for about 30-something years of my life, I didn't even know that I wanted to be a dad. I wasn't necessarily going to have kids. And then I met my wife now, my current wife of my dreams, when I was 35 years old. And I realized that once you meet the right person, I did want to, raise a family and have some kids. So like that changing moment when, I realized I wanted to have kids was pretty amazing. And I didn't have my first kid until I was 41. And then I have a baby boy in the way, and I want to be 45 this year. So I'm starting late, but I'm excited. And yeah, it's really important to me. I mean, whenever I'm having a tough day or things aren't going well, I just go home and see my daughter, and she'll say the silliest thing, and it just helps you forget about the woes in your business.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. So outside of those characteristics, what are some other things that friends would describe you as? Who are you? What is your identity as far as behavior, character, things like that? Let our listeners know what defines you.
I think probably one of the biggest things, any friend, especially from back in the day, even till now, is loyal. I try to be, a good friend, there for friends, there as a person. I think another thing that I identify, I guess, as is, I'm trying to, is when I was younger, I wasn't always the best person. I made a lot of mistakes, was kind of a jerk to some people, and wasn't always, just not always the best character. I can go through that stories of why I had some hate and just in a bad spot, but I'm trying my second chapter of my life just to be a better person. So my goal is to just try to make someone happy, do the little things to make someone's life better, and just try to be a better person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really great. I really appreciate that about you. We worked together in a champion tribe where we were holding each other accountable, and I think one of the things that I was really most impressed about you is how authentic and genuine you are.
I'm trying. It's not easy to be in a world of social media and all these, it's hard to know who you truly are as a person because you have all these, images in other people's minds, but I'm trying to figure that out and then just be the best person I can be. Yeah.
Now, the one thing I have to tell you, though, there is no trying. You know that.
Yes.
It's either doing
right.
or not. Yeah. It's either doing it or you're not doing it. There is no trying.
You're right. I'm sorry. I am going to be the best person I can be. There we go.
Excellent. Great.
I am becoming a better person.
Love it.
That is a journey. That is a journey word.
Well, Dan, let's just go ahead and jump in a little bit here. We're going to have an opportunity for you to talk a little bit about who you are later in the way of your role, but let's start off with your experience. So what did you bring us today?
All right, let's talk about, and like I said, there are plenty of but I think one of the more recent ones, and one of the ones that I've really had to learn from, especially as I'm growing different companies, is hiring mistakes. And I don't even want to necessarily pin that on the person I hired. It's my mistake. Maybe in one specific instance, I didn't set the correct expectations. I didn't have them prepared enough to take on that role. I didn't have proper metrics and KPIs to show them whether they were succeeding or not. So it's on me that I didn't necessarily set them up successfully enough to do the job well. And that's something that I've really tried to step back and learn on for all new hires, just to get better and better each time, so that it's clear, concise, and they have the best opportunity to shine in their role. Yeah.
So when you say that it's on you, what exactly does that mean?
The mindset I have, I just hate to say that someone, came in and they weren't the right fit, and, it was all on them. They didn't do their job. They weren't successful. They didn't follow through on their promises. Pretty much almost every time, that's something that I take a look and it reflects back on me. Did I set them up properly? Did I make the right hire? Maybe the answer is they didn't hit all their goals, everything, because they're just not the right person. And I maybe didn't vet them properly, or just realize that they may not have been the right fit for that role. So obviously there's some responsibility on all ends to be successful, but I've always realized the only way that I've ever grown is if I look back and say, okay, this didn't work out. What should I do better the next time so that it doesn't happen again?
And how did you recognize that that was a mistake or something that you would need to take accountability for?
Because I had hired a couple people that didn't work out, and I had to realize quickly, who's the common denominator? Probably myself. And, what measures am I using to hire? And then I started to reach out to networks and groups, such as, we were in one together, Dr. Troy, these groups of other business owners and leaders to say, hey, what am I doing wrong? How do I get better at this? Or maybe it's just not my strong point, and I started bringing in other people, outside third parties, to help me hire so I can be more successful.
With those, there's a in the extreme ownership world of Jocko, but there's also the dichotomy of leadership, in the sense that you can take all the ownership, right, and say, okay, I didn't prepare them, I didn't do this. But at what point did you learn that it's how did you make the difference? Let's say it this way. How did you take ownership and understand the difference between the competency that was required versus the ownership that you didn't have in preparing them or hiring properly?
Let me see if I can answer that properly. The way I would say it is now I make sure that I set up key metrics to be able to determine what those factors are. So you're right. So if I have KPIs and I'm clear up front, and I give them the good, the bad, and the ugly right away, and I say, hey, here's what you have to accomplish. Here are the goals you have to hit. Here are the metrics. And they tell me they can commit to those, and they give me the experience that they can, and then they don't hit upon those, then I can hold them accountable quicker to achieve those tasks. Whereas when you don't have those metrics in place, to me, that's probably more on me to not have all the systems in place set up properly for them to be successful. But now I'm able to put those measures in place, and I can hold those people accountable to hit those goals. And then it may be on them at the end of the day. If we've gone over everything pre-hire, set the clear standards, they were set up for success, and they still weren't hitting their metrics, then at that point, they're just not the right fit. Yeah.
So Dan, I want to ask you, we've had some conversations off and on, both Ben and I, and then with other individuals, about this concept of holding people accountable. So there is a particular theory or thought process that you really can't hold other people accountable. They have to hold themselves accountable. So when you say hold accountable, where are you in describing that? Is it like you really believing that you can hold them accountable, or is it that they can hold themselves accountable now because there's something to hold accountable to?
I like the way you think of that. That's not something I've necessarily done a deep dive into that thought process, but I agree with what you're saying. It's the same added as, I've had friends back in the day who would take drugs, and they would tell me they're going to quit, and then they end up overdosing. And the point of that is, if they didn't want to help themselves, they said that they wanted help, they would show or say the words, but they didn't truly want to make the change themselves. So therefore, how are they going to be successful if they're not truly trying to make that change themselves? So I do agree with what you're saying. It has to be someone that I call them like 8s and 9s, someone that's willing to hold themselves accountable to achieve those tasks. And you can actually see that they're affected when they don't hit those KPIs or those targets. Those are those absolutely grade A top employees. And I'm trying to find those types of people to join my organization. It's not always easiest to do so, but when I do, I hold on and I make sure they're appreciated and, pay them well.
Well, one definition of accountability means being responsible for one's actions, being willing to explain, justify, and take responsibility for them, often with potential consequences for unacceptable actions. So when we're holding someone accountable, we're simply saying, you said you were going to, it's more of this is what you were going to do. Now we're in the consequence mode, basically. In that aspect to some degree, is like they said they were going to do those things. So we kind of jumped ahead on some answers there, but let's think of one of specific bad hire that you had. What did it cost you? Actually monetarily, time-wise, stress-wise, what did a bad hire, a bad decision of judgment cost you?
I'll say first and foremost, number one, headspace. Headspace is so important. And if I'm going to do my role properly, I need to have a pretty clear head to do RGA, revenue generating activities. And because I hired wrong and this person was a stressor in my company and this person wasn't necessarily the right fit, not for whatever reason, I think it stressed him. He wasn't happy and I wasn't happy. And therefore we were both unable to accomplish any goals and move forward because we were in each other's headspace. So that's first and foremost I've learned the wrong hire can really affect your headspace. And then number two, the time of being set back. We're a small business. It's not a Microsoft or the thousands of employees. Each person really means a lot to move the needle. And when one person isn't working out and you got to trade them out for someone new, that I think it set us back probably almost a full year, on timelines to try to regroup, reestablish our business and then move forward. So the time and the headspace are the two most factors. And then other than that, money, I don't know exactly monetary wise. I could say his salary, money lost by not hitting goals could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's more the time and the headspace that hurts the company.
And Dan, the people who are really our key listeners for this podcast are individuals who they are somewhat dissatisfied with their current employer because they're not getting training and development. They're feeling passed over for promotions and they have no plan for success. So taking your situation where you said that you didn't hire correctly, let's try to translate that into a leadership moment for an individual. So someone who's trying to advance their career, what could they learn from the concept of I didn't prepare myself well for the new hire?
Oh, that's a great question. So I love when someone comes in to a position or they're just trying to be hired for a role and they clearly explain how they learn and how they know that they could prove themselves to be successful. So they'll come in and they'll say, listen, I need help from you to clearly define what the end result looks like, what my resources are to achieve them. And then from there, I'll be able to be successful. And some people may need a step-by-step almost, kind of map the whole process out from start to the beginning. Whatever the case is, when someone in a leadership role understands how they learn best, understands how they're going to be the most effective and can relay that to me so that I could properly give them the tools to be successful, that's been very helpful. And that's, we actually just had that on, one of our last hires. It was very, very, it was a big relief to hear stuff that like they're thinking 3-4 steps ahead to make sure that they themselves are set up for success.
I love that. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Ben.
From a self-awareness, that's a credible tool that we were very adamant on. Let's go earlier in the career. How do you suggest or help someone get to that space where they know how they learn best, how they need to be, outfitted the best and supported the best? How does somebody get to that point? How do you suggest? Your career, you've had a good career. You've hired, fired many people. What examples have you seen of people figuring out how to find themselves?
Yeah, that's kind of a tough question. I would say probably, like what really drives you? What really makes you happy? Maybe figure out some key moments, whether it's in business or in life, where you've been successful. You've had like the drive. You feel that fire inside you. And, what caused you to have that? Maybe something on that angle, just knowing who you are as a person and what truly drives you and your learning style. And I think the best way to do it is from past. Like, what are some examples? It could be someone just coming out of high school or college, maybe it was some test or some professors that you had to navigate yourself around, or whatever the case is. And you were able to have some key learning lessons on areas that you struggled, but were able to overcome. And then you can kind of figure out from there. It's the same thing in business. You're going to have those same kind of hurdles as a communication hurdle, as an understanding of the product or the classroom, if you're in college or whatever the case is, to really be successful. So I don't know. I would say probably past experience. Yeah.
I would say that boils down to one word for me: reflection.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think we take enough time or put credence into the fact that we need to slow down and actually reflect. So I think your answer is perfect, because that past experience is, you're going to say, hey, this worked for me, this didn't. But if you move forward without spending the time to reflect, you're never going to know what actually had the most benefit to you.
100%. That's in a lot of areas of life. Yes.
And I also see that when I'm thinking about like this individual that's listening right now and thinking about this, it sounds to me like, as a leader, you want to give them permission to really come fully prepared into an interview, to be ready and to ask questions as to what the expectations are, what are the KPIs, what are the ways in which they may be monitored, measured, evaluated, that they shouldn't just leave it up to you as the leader to have to tell them. Am I getting that vibe from you?
Oh, 100%. Because they know they want to be successful. So someone who truly does, if I walk into an interview and I have to do all the talking, I have to tell them all those key metrics, I have to tell them all that stuff, that's probably not the right person. You're right. You want someone that clearly knows where they're going to be successful, comes into that and able to relay that properly.
So, and I'm just really curious about this, because I think this is such an interesting thing, prepping people for interviews, for, promotions, for advancement. Is there any specific cues that you think that you as a leader would give off that would tell that person interviewing for a job, oh, it's okay for me now to say this, as opposed to, because it's sort of like, right, the interview is like a dance, it's an art and a science. You can't come into an interview like you would on a first date and say, hey, I really want to get married, I want to have 8 kids, I want to live here, I want to have this house, I want to do this. I mean, you can't do that in the beginning of a relationship, because it kind of scares people away. So at what point in that interview process do you think it's okay for somebody to start talking about expectations and KPIs?
Obviously, after the first interview, when you sit down with someone, so I'll just kind of give you a shared experience of what we do here. So right now, I have someone that I'm interviewing. They're actually coming in tomorrow for a sales role. And we're going to sit down at my office, and I have comfy chairs. They're going to have a coffee. We're going to sit back, give them a little bit more of a relaxing environment, not shirt and tie in an office where they feel a little, nervous. We're going to sit here, have a coffee. There might be some jazz playing in the background. We're just going to start, I don't know what I'm allowed to say or not, talking. And we're just kind of, I was going to say shooting the shit, but I didn't know if that was bad or not. But
well, too late. You've already said it. So
yeah, there we go. So, but you want me to be real? So, so I just want to make them feel comfortable. And then one of the things that I'm starting to really focus on when I'm hiring people, at least on this level. Again, there's different levels. When you have 400 employees, it might not be the exact same advice, but I like to ask, once I realize they're probably a good fit, I can see that they're smart, they could be a good fill for the position. I start to ask them personally what they want to achieve out of life. I want to know about them a little bit personally to see, do they like to travel? Like, I'll give you an example. My latest hired executive assistant, she loves to travel. That's one of her things. And she loves to spend, time with her family traveling. And she was a little nervous at first, and we were doing the interview going back and forth. And then she finally told me she had a week and a half planned for July as I'm hiring her a month ago. And to me, I'm glad I got her to be that comfortable, because that does matter to me. If travel's important for her and makes her happy, I want to make sure I can accommodate that. And the position allows her to hit her personal goals, because guess what? She's probably going to stay on board with me a lot longer and work a little bit harder, because I truly care about her as well. So I think, at least for me, is trying to get them comfortable in the setting and then asking them maybe a few personal questions to get to know them as human beings. I've seen that usually helps them open up.
Well, we certainly would agree with that, since that's why we opened the podcast with connections before content. It's about developing a relationship and getting comfortable with the relationship, and then moving into some of those skill things. And I really feel like that's a good way to start, but not all interviewers are going to go that way. But it is helpful for the interviewee to be prepared.
And that's a mutual commitment. When you're finding out what motivates her, you can commit to, hey, I want to make sure you can have that. Here's the goals that I need to have you hit so we can make this all happen. And that goes with bigger things. Like, some people are so scared with somebody wanting to have goals that are bigger than the position they have. But honestly, if you pour into them, they're going to become better while you have them. And it's going to be good for everybody. We often love to do a connections where we ask people to share their last wins. And it's scary sometimes in a group of 30 when they only share professional wins, because they don't feel psychologically safe to share personal wins in front of their peers, because they'll be made fun of, or they need to talk about business only. So the companies that we've seen that have the most cohesive cultures are ones that are able to blend and talk about personal and business. So I love that. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely love that. We do that. We just had our Monday meetings. They're at noon every Monday. And we have what are you grateful for and what's a win? And you're allowed to have one of them be business, but the other one has to be personal. So it could be the grateful, the win, whatever it is. Get them to open up.
Yeah, sweet. Really, really love that. Dan, I sort of knew this, having known you for a while, but I just love how you subscribe to the whole concept around cohesion. I mean, including people, making sure that the work that they do is meaningful and has value, and that they feel like there's purpose, and then that mutual commitment that's coming out of collaboration, like you're expecting people to come to the table knowing something, or being able to do something, and to have clear a little bit more clarity. And I think that's where people can be successful in interviews, is if they have that clarity of who they are and where they want to be, and not just kind of be, well, I'll take any job that's kind of open and available. It's sort of like if you're interviewing a person who's there, you don't really know where they're going, and you may find that they're not nearly as successful as they would be if they went a specific direction. Even if they didn't get hired, I think they'd have better success long term, because they would be clearer about what they were doing, and they would have more self-confidence.
I also think people who are looking, I mean, if you're a leader right now and you're looking for a new role, sometimes I feel like a lot of people cast the wide net, and I've done the same thing. When you're looking for something, you cast this wide net. Sometimes it's better to go deeper. If you know the culture you want in a business, if you know the specifics about a company, go deep. And maybe you're only applying for 4 companies, but you just nonstop hound them until there's a position open, because you know that they match like what you're looking for out of a company. And I think that's huge. I do the same thing all the time. I'm like, all right, like you said, Ben, about stepping back and reflecting rather than just always rushing and moving forward. Same thing. Step back, reflect. What do I want out of my next company? Because, my friends and my family, it's job after job after job. And after a year, it's the job that stinks and all the negatives about the job. It's like, well, is it that, or is it that maybe you just keep going to the same type of job and it's not the right role for you or company structure?
A big part of this is the intentionality that's required to reflect. 2020, I like to refer to as the 2020 years. They forced me as my business owner to reflect when I normally would never have done what was required of me, right? When you're in the busyness of life and business is going okay, it's hard to look back and say, what really isn't serving me well? And so I hope folks can figure out and put the downtime in to spend that time reflecting. I was forced to do it. And now I'm building that more in to probably on an annual basis to look back and have those types of things, which was never my behaviors or my personality to do that. And COVID 2020 time period slowed me down in such a way that I analyze, probably much to Dr. Troy's chagrin, more about my motivation of why I do things more than ever before, and analyzing the fruit that produces any seed that I plant. And I loved being busy before, and now I love just being productive. And I've learned how to figure out how that worked for me, because I have figured out myself way more than ever before. and I hate to say that I was forced to do it. And I guess some people that happens when they get laid off or a life situation happens. I just implore any listeners to do it before you have to, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's such great advice. And I don't know if you guys know this concept by Jack Welch, GE. Every year he would review productivity by everybody in the company and get rid of the bottom 10% of people. And then every year you hire a new group of people. And now instead of the bottom 10% being all ones, maybe you get 2s and 3s and you hire an 8 and a 10 in that mix. And you just, every year you keep leveling up. And you could think of that in all different aspects of your life. Like, I'm a real estate investor. I'm starting to every year get rid of all the 10% bottom of my properties that are giving all the headaches and don't really cash flow. And then maybe I level up those properties. Or it's just life. Like, look at the tasks that I'm doing on a daily basis. How could I get rid of 10 or 20% of the worst things on my task? And then I can focus more on being productive versus busy. And it's a pretty cool concept if you implement it in a lot of different ways in your life.
I think that's really good advice for individuals who are trying to get something from today. It's, being prepared for an interview, having that self-confidence, make sure that you're including some personal attention for yourself and creating that relationship. And then I think it is understanding what you want to do versus what you have to do, and making a list of the things that you should get rid of that are keeping you from being as successful as you want to be. I have a little program in my coaching program where I ask leaders to give away 7 things. They have to come up with 7 things that they're going to give away. And it's really an interesting experiment, because there are individuals who are like so tied to this. And so the question becomes, okay, so if you give it up, what happens? And most often, like, the answer is, well, somebody else will do it, or it didn't really matter, and it's just something that they're doing. But it's helping you focus your brain and clear the clutter. So I think that's a little bit of what you were talking about.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. So I actually just want to go to, you've done a lot of the not like avoiding the bad hires before. What would be a takeaway then for a new hire? I just want to give, what's a words of wisdom that we've gone through a lot of things here. Just if we're going to wrap it up and say, here's something that you should think about as you're going to get employed by somebody that actually does use a lot of KPIs and metrics and all that. Knowing that, being aware that you are someone that's a metric driven versus there are plenty of companies that the type of work they're going to be doing is way more subjective, right? In what they're doing. How do you prepare someone to be ready for the interview of a very objective company?
Okay. I mean, is that the right fit for them? I guess would be the first question. Maybe it isn't. Maybe they can't do that. I guess, again, I'll go back to my experiences because it's a little bit easier. That was kind of my assistant's role. I kind of said, hey, I can give you some things you're going to be doing, but it's basically just kind of, I'm throwing everything at you and I need you to figure out, be organized, figure it out, and, organize it for me. That's not my strength. I know my strengths. My strengths are, business development, creating relationships, seeing opportunities, adjusting and adapting to markets. My strengths are not being organized. I have to hyper focus to be organized. So I hire someone for that role, and I just set the clear expectation. I'm just going to throw everything against the wall and you got to put it all together and make sure it stays in place. And I think someone going into that role, is that something that you can do? Are you extremely organized, or can you be, or, can you work in more chaos rather than a streamlined, here's step 1 through 10 to do something. So again, I think this just goes back to knowing your personality, knowing your strengths, knowing how you learn, and then making sure you don't just apply for every job. You apply for the jobs that match up to your strengths and skill sets.
Yeah, really focus on the career you want, not the job you have.
Yep.
I got a last thing, Dan. Are there any assessments or tools that you rely on to help people to know your people's behaviors and personalities within your own organization, or ones that you look to if they've already done outside of you? Are there any?
No, but I should. I know there are a lot of tools out there. I'm just going to be honest with you. I have not used A lot of them I've taken some of those tests. I forget all the acronyms for them. There's like 4 or 5 of them out there, but no, I just kind of do it on my read and just personal. And that's probably why I mess up sometimes, but I've done it on my read and just asking more in-depth questions and trying to get sincere answers, get the person to start giving sincere answers.
Well, the podcast was never meant to be a sales tool, but we can talk later about our DISC assessments and behavior assessments with driving forces, because we recently, both Troy and I, had an assistant that worked with us that the conversations I had with this person were saying that they could do the work, but yet the assessment, the report kept on saying, 2 different ones that we had said that that's not what they were designed for or what they were the best fit for. But they wanted that lifestyle and the results of what that job had. And it ultimately came down that the test didn't lie, that they were trying to work in a manner well, there's a great quote: "You cannot perform consistently in a manner inconsistent with your beliefs." And so actually I'll quote this because I love this, an example of as golfing, right? Especially since we're, in the master way idea that if you are I'm not even a golfer, so I don't even know what the number, if you're a par golfer or whatever, and you're hitting the front 9 and you're well below, you're going to do something to self-sabotage on the back 9 because you realize I'm not that good. Right. And when I realized that we want to believe that we can do more, but without those other habits we've put in, without other systems that we've talked about, we're not going to be that good. So that's where I love that the assessments gives a baseline to say, here's where you're going to follow the systems. Well, your systems are your behaviors. And so that's where I believe hiring with those and us using those within organizations really help us know, I hear that you aspire to do this, but your MO is not that. You're the thing that you want, the way that you're wired is not that way. And I have tried to be against those things, and I've failed miserably on my own aspect too. So
no, I do love it. And you're right, because you want to know what someone says and how someone acts can be completely different. And that's just another way to just double check to make sure that they're not feeding you fluff just because they love your company, but the role that you have open doesn't necessarily match their skill set. So
right. And being okay with that, and dating and looking for a job is a filter. The goal is to find the things that don't work, right? So it's okay that you don't connect and that you're not the right fit, because you want to excel and you want to be in an area that gives you life and joy and energy and all those things. And so anybody listening though, I don't say that you want to label once you do an assessment of whatever behavior or thing. Don't wear that as a badge to say, I am this way, just deal with it. The goal is to understand where you're at and where others are and figure out how to make the bridge to go between the two, especially if it's communication or work ethic and things like that. But I know that I'm not a detail or tenacious person, and others on my team have to be, or we're not getting anything done.
Yeah. And I like how you said that. And I know this kind of goes with that. Obviously it's not a test, but I've realized quickly when I'm hiring someone and someone on the other end, I think it's important for them to know so you get a bunch of applications for a role, and then you go and, you might call them, have a good conversation. So now what I started doing was I'll send them a task to do that kind of has to do with that role. And before anything happens, I want them to send me an email with that task to see how well they did at it. First of all, to see if they have the drive to actually do it, because probably 9 out of 10 people don't even send me anything. And then that last person that sends it, probably only 50% of those are good enough for me to make that call to the next step in the interview process. So I think on the other end, if you're looking for jobs and everything, just realize that. And maybe even if they don't even ask for it, be prepared to send that for the jobs that you really love. Show them how you can perform your job and excel at it before you even have the opportunity.
Dan, I really thank you so much for being on our podcast today. And we're going to close here in a minute with a few more questions and an opportunity for you to tell folks how they might be able to get in touch with you. But I just want to do a quick recap that, here are 3 things that individuals who are listening today can take away from our podcast. The first thing is do your research for the company that you want to work for and be prepared to drill down. Interview for the role that aligns with the career you're looking for, not just with anything that comes that way. And then know your skills and play to them. If you're not an organized person, don't try to sell yourself as an organized person, because it's not going to work. So, Dan, how can people get in touch with you?
You can reach me. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Dan Rivers _RCG. And if you want to shoot me an email, it's dan@danrivers.com.
Nice.
Okay, perfect. So, Dan, we also like to ask our folks who our guests who are on to say, what was a question you thought Ben or I would ask you that we didn't?
Oh, I was not prepared for this. Oh, I don't know. Maybe drilling down deeper into more of my mistakes. I thought maybe you're going to come at me harder. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. We will never try to put you on the spot like that.
That's all right.
I think we got a lot out of it, though, just on the idea of ownership as the organizational leader, understanding that you owned your spot, but then also that translating that into how other people can benefit from it as well. So knowing to be prepared. And, I really love the extreme ownership side of it, of owning that, where it's always on the leader to take accountability, because it's their spot. But then at some point, competency matters, right? You have to be able to do the job you were hired to do. So
yeah, 100%. You can't take it all on all that burden on your shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dan Rivers, thank you so much for being with us. You realtor, investor, entrepreneur, father, and husband. It was great having you. And as we close out all of our cohesive leadership programs, it's with this mantra: you don't have to know everything.
just need to be teachable.